Our podcast is brought to you by Northern Bee Books, stockist of the largest range of new and second-hand bee books.
Specialist publishers including the Beekeepers Quarterly and Natural Bee Husbandry magazine.
Check them out at northernbeebooks.co.uk.
Welcome to the Kiwimana Day. Hi there, this is episode 159 of our Beekeeping Show. Getting ready for Quinta with our Q&A.
In this show, we answer questions about Apilophar, new queens, and where to put a box and losing a queen. Plus, this is a live show, so we have questions from the live audience.
Awesome.
We are Gary.
And Margaret.
We are kiwimana, and kiwimana are beekeepers from the hills of the Waitaki Ranges on the wild west coast of Auckland in the North Island of New Zealand.
Yes, we build and sell beekeeping equipment and bees, provide beekeeper services and education.
Yes, and every time a subscriber joins our beekeeping newsletter, they get asked, what's your biggest beekeeping problem? In this show, we endeavour to answer some of those questions buzzing around in your head. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time to listen. And thanks to all our live audience today.
Yes, and this show was made with the help of our Awesomeness Bananas supporters.
And the show notes for this podcast are kiwi.bz/159. Okay, let's go to Book of the Week. Okay, this week in Bee Books, we catch up with Jerry Burbridge from Northern Bee Books about a great Bee Book of the Week. Jerry, what have you found for us this week?
I've got a book by David Aston and Sally Bucknell, and it's called Keeping Healthy Honeybees. And it's not just a matter of how you treat bees to keep them healthy, but it's about the practice of beekeeping so that you keep your colonies fit and well. What you do with bees in the summer affects how successful you're going to be the following year. And so he deals with here, or both of them, their man and wife team, they deal with the aspects of keeping your bees healthy. David Aston was a former president of the British Beekeepers, and he also holds the highest award in British beekeeping, which is a National Diploma of Beekeeping. I doubt if there are more than about 100 beekeepers in England who've got it, and there's a lot you can learn from that book.
Oh, fantastic. We all need to keep healthy bees, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. That's the most important thing, isn't it? To keep healthy bees. So another great book.
Yeah, it looks good, and the covers looks like a whole lot of pollen.
Yes, absolutely.
So there must be lots of different flowers around the area where they took that photo, that's for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Let's move into questions. Okay, first up, we have some questions that you have submitted on the problem page. And first up, we're going to hear from Greg. He's saying, we used Apilophar and new cage queens added to... start again. And he new cage queens, he added them to the bees from different hives, and 25% of the queens failed. This is usually successful. So I think what he's saying is he's put new queens in a hive and he put Apilophar in, which I wouldn't do that until the queens have started laying, would you?
Yeah, I agree. I think that when you're looking at adding queens to a colony, you really want to have a nice neutral environment so that the pheromones of the queen will take over. And when you use... My glasses are dirty, by the way. Just clean my glasses. But when you put in Apilophar, it's live. Very strong scented treatment. So it can affect the pheromone of the queen getting around. So, yeah, you have to... I always think that you should make sure a hive is queen right before you use Apilophar.
Yeah, I would. Well, anything that's going to make a big smell in the hive, any kind of treatment, really.
Yeah, I think so. In saying that, we've used oxalic acid vaporization. Yeah, and it's been all right. I don't like to treat anything when I'm waiting for new queens anyway. I think you should get all your treatments done before you start doing the breeding side of things. Get all the varroa dealt to and cleaned out as much as possible. Then do your splits, wait for your new queens, and once they're laying and up and running, then maybe you could do oxalic acid vaporization. But generally, by the time you've hit spring, you should have finished all your treatments before the breeding cycle, in my view.
Yeah, good idea. Good idea.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the questions. Another question. This is from Mike. He has a full depth box with a queen excluder on top, followed by a 3/4 box with 10 frames on top. I want to add another box. Should he put it on top of what I have, or put on top of queen excluder and then put a 3/4 on top of that? The 3/4 box has honey stores for winter. I would remove the queen excluder for winter. Don't leave a queen excluder on over winter, because what happens is the cluster can stay at the bottom and the queen can't get through the queen excluder. Do you concur?
I concur. I think what it is that when you're looking at going into winter, you want the colony to be a very strong unit, right? So depending on how you've set up your hive, if your hive is lower to the ground or natural cool weather starts, the bees, in the history of while we've been doing beekeeping, is we find that if there's lots of boxes on, the bees will move up, and often they leave behind brood because it's getting colder. So the entrance is exposed, they're getting a lot more chill, so they will move up and they'll leave brood behind. Now, if you've got a queen excluder above that brood box and the colony moves up, the queen will get trapped below the actual queen excluder. So, and I also have this view that when you're a beginner, having a queen excluder can absolutely be a big problem, because if she's left behind, there's no one to feed her, she'll get chilled, and that's the end of it. So Mike removed the queen excluder and he wants to add another box. Now, I'm not sure why you'd want to do that at this time of the year as you're heading into winter. So I'm not sure what that scenario is, but we don't run our hives like that anyway. We have 2 brood boxes which are the same size, minimum. If you're running 3/4 brood boxes, then you're probably looking at 3 to 4 through the peak running through the season. But yeah, I'd recommend using a queen excluder only when you've got all your brood sorted out and completely free to grow. So queen excluders, you'd probably be better off to take them off before winter, but you can put them on when you start seeing honey production, and we allow our bees to have 2 brood boxes, and we never use queen excluders. Only time is when we do a split and when we've got a 24-hour period where we're waiting for the colony to get itself sorted in the 2 boxes. So remove that queen excluder.
Absolutely. Don't use a queen excluder over winter. If you need to keep it in the hive, just put it above the roof, at the very top, where no bees are going to go through it, or take it off completely.
You could put it above the hive mat if you want to leave it on. I kind of like leaving all my stuff on the hive, and I just put it right at the very top. There's a question from Bjorn. He said, for wintering down, with all types of hives out there, is there an easy formula to calculate how many stores are needed for the winter? A formula that works for all hive types.
Well, we're not... Yeah, in New Zealand we generally go for about 6 full frames, which are full Langstroth frames. And that's a minimum, really.
A lot of...
But where you are, Bjorn, it might be different. So
if you're talking about... okay, so there's the frames as in honey frames, and then that's food. Then there's food as in sugar syrups. A lot of people winter down their hives get their brood right down, maybe give them a couple of frames or 4 frames on either side, depending on how much brood they have. And then they put a feeder on the top, and then they just keep filling that as the bees need it. If you're doing feeding, like sugar syrups, or even if you're giving them honeycomb, I always recommend above the brood have a hive mat with a slot. So the bees will keep the brood warm, their cluster will stay there, but they can go up into the feeder and feed without chilling the brood side of things. So I like to have 10 to 14 frames of full depth honey frames for the girls.
That's quite a lot, eh? So that should be enough for most places, I'd say.
Yeah, we had some issues at the end of last winter, eh? We had a strange start to the season with spring coming on quickly. Then for about 3 or 4 weeks it chilled right down, and through that time the population had grown heaps. Like there was heaps of bees in there, and they were eating through all of their spare honey. So we actually needed every single one of those frames. And I even had to add more because they got very hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the last question from the problems page. Dan says, lost my queen, still figuring out what to do. What are my options? Well, option 1, buy a new queen if you can.
Hang on a minute. I always say step back a bit to see what is going on. So a lot of beginners panic. If they don't see the queen and they don't see eggs, they start to panic. So the things to understand is, what time of year are you in? Okay, that's the first thing. If you know what time of year what time of the year?
Year it is.
What time of the season? If it's a season, you would be looking at understanding that sometimes queens stop laying. Okay? If you've got a big population, sometimes you can't see her. So if he's absolutely sure he's lost his queen, the thing is what time of the year is it? So if it's coming into winter, will he have time to raise a new queen from maybe getting eggs from another colony? So if he gets eggs from another colony, he could put in a frame of eggs into that colony and let them raise a new queen. That takes time. You also need drones around if you want to do that. So that's another area where you've got to be careful. If the queen was killed through an inspection, generally the bees would start raising a new queen. So, you know, really be absolutely sure, because I've heard people say, I got queen cells in there and I killed them all. Don't do that.
Waste of money.
Waste of money. And if the bees have raised new queen cells, then a good chance that you'll have something replaced. If the queen has lost due to sickness, is the hive healthy enough to put a new queen in? Have you got disease in there? Where is she? Where is the cause for her disappearing? So that's, you know, try not to panic immediately. Take your time. And if you want to, and it's the right time of the year, you may be able to order a fully mated queen and put her into the hive. If the queen, there is a queen there somewhere and it's in winter and she's just stopped laying because of the temperature change, then she'll get killed once she emerges from the cage. So it's very, very much based on what time of year is the time that you want to replace a queen. So there's the natural way where they'll raise queen cells. There's the one where we as a beekeeper have harmed the queen in some way, or there's sickness. So always know what has happened.
Absolutely. Yeah, good idea. And Snow's barking.
Snow's just letting us know that there's a rat running around out on the lawn.
Out on the lawn, not in the house, luckily.
Okay.
Yeah, and well, last week we moved some hives, so we released a new video about how to move hives in 29 seconds. And that's pretty good. It's a little, it's up there, isn't it? Pretty fast. You can see how fast Margaret's moving in that video. It's amazing. And what else are we doing?
If you only knew the truth.
And we also treated the hives last weekend, didn't we, with oxalic acid?
Yeah, Gary did all the legwork for us, so that was awesome.
Yeah, and Stephen Barnes says, do you use a gas vaporizer for varroa treatments? I'm guessing you mean oxalic acid vaporizer is what we use. And what mix do you use? Well, we usually use about half a teaspoon for a single box, and about a full teaspoon for multiple boxes. That's what I did in the weekend.
Okay, so yeah, we do. That you're welcome, Bjorn. Awesome. Basically, what we do is the oxalic acid vaporization is a tool where the head of the vaporizer will take the oxalic acid crystals. Then we attach the tool, has two clips, and we attach it to a 12-volt battery, and then the heat exchange will change the crystals into liquid, then become vapor. Very magical. And all the smoke that is goes into the hive will be moved by the movement of the bees, and then it will be spread all over the frames, the bees, everywhere, and then the bees will start cleaning and grooming. They'll start doing work in the cells, and generally we use a 1/4 teaspoon per box. And the reason for doing it per box and not worrying about how much brood is there is that if you have a lot of boxes and you use oxalic acid vaporization, the smoke vapors, as they go up, they dissipate, and so they become weaker. So that's one of the reasons why I love it, in the sense that it's not going to be permeating into the honey or anything, or the wax. The bees will clean it off, and it will not be like a chemical, some of the synthetic treatments which stay in the wax and everything. And the beauty of it is it's organic, but the other side of it is you have to apply it more. So it really depends on the health of the bees when you use this treatment. And if you were asking me if it's a sick hive, I'd give you a different reply, but that's how we use our oxalic acid vaporization system.
Yeah, hopefully that answers your question there, Stephen. And any more questions, guys? Okay.
I heard crickets. We have had some phone calls because people knew that we were going to be doing the show, and
excuse me.
Oh! Did you use your elbow?
No, we're in the bubble.
In our bubble.
Sorry.
Yeah, we had questions about that for months. Basically, this year, despite all the treatments, a lot of people are finding that the mite levels are still really high on the inspection boards. We use inspection boards which sit under the mesh, and they're oiled, and the grooming and the natural fall of mites as they're getting killed is how we count them. So there's a lot of mathematical ways to do it, but basically I just count what's on the board, and if it's anything over 6, I know that there's a lot of varroa in there. But then you've also got to look at the bee cycle. So if you're looking at bee cycles and you've just done winter treatment, so we've got one of our ladies who's using Apilifar, same thing. They did it for 4 weeks, one wafer, once a week over 4 weeks. Then waited a week for everything to settle down, then did a 24-hour mite count. And that's when you see the true result of it. When you treat in the middle of treating, you should always see lots of mite fall, basically.
Oh, you mean when you check mites in the middle of a treatment? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, like when you're doing the inspection board and you're panicking because you're going, oh my God, there's so many Varroa. Well, you're going to see a lot of drop through the process of the treatment. So you're better to to do a mite count before you treat. You also should always make sure the hive is queen right, and then go to the end of the treatment and then do your next mite fall checks.
To make sure it worked.
Yeah, and the other thing is that we don't know why the mite falls are just so huge. I don't know why the mite falls are just so massive. I mean, even when you did the treatments the other week, there was a lot of mite fall.
Well, that's good, but because that was like an hour after we treated, so that means that those mites are dying.
So, and then you've got to do the cycle of the bee. So if you've got a treatment and you put it in and you do it when all the bees are in capped cells, right, you probably won't see the result of that until they all hatch, which is the 21 to 28 days afterwards. And then if you don't do something about it when they hatch, all those bees that have hatched with mites, they will crawl into next cells, and then your treatment won't work. And then within 3 weeks after that, suddenly the hive becomes more sicker. So the cycle of the bee is something really important, and learn what that means for treatment side of things.
Yeah, and Stephen got back to it and said he really meant a fogger. So it uses propane to heat the vapour. Yeah, they're the ones, and you can get ones that use electric as well. And they fire out a jet of oxalic acid, like a smoke, which is kind of a similar principle, but you need to be fully kitted up for that because it's quite dangerous. You
need to be really careful with using a fogger. So some people use foggers with essential oils, and we found that has not been successful. The hives get too oily, and bees do not work well with oil. They can't clean it. A bee is always trying to clean inside the hive, so oils are just don't use them. The oxalic acid, in terms of that, it's like a quick blast, isn't it?
I think the advantage over a heated element thing or a vaporizer is that it's a lot quicker. And if you're a commercial guy, you can do a hive in like about a minute, eh? It's really quick, and you could do a lot of hives really quickly. But no, we don't have that. We have the electric one where you do 2.5 minutes in each hive.
And I think the other thing with that kind of fogger system is that you need to always treat with a vaporizer or a fogger or whatever where the bees are always moving, because they move everything around the hive and get it in there. But if you have, you're using something that will do that quick
vaporization.
Quick vaporization, then you go to the next hive, the hive is still open. So I like to keep the hive closed while we do the 10 minutes of the vapors just being moved around by the bees. So that's what's missing with that process.
Yeah, I think it would make it better if you did that, if you sealed it up. But that wouldn't take much effort, would it? Because
I think so.
I've seen a few people, they have like a little hole in the back of this hive and they put the thing in it and then squirt through the hole. It's a hole that the bee can't get out of, but I don't know. But to answer your question, no, we haven't tried it. If anyone in the chat room's tried that, sing up.
Sing up?
Yeah.
Sing out, hallelujah. Okay, so we got a question from Stephanie. She says, would you recommend going into winter with 2 boxes or shake them down?
I would say 2, but you're in the winterless north, so it might be a bit different. But I think we always go 2 boxes. We have the brood at the bottom, and the top is basically honey, and around the edges is honey. Hey, so we have a lot of honey on there for the winter. So
basically, what we do, wintering down is a process where you're trying to ensure that you have got a queen that you do. This is like a check, okay? And then you check you've got a queen, you check you've got good brood that's there, you check your bees are healthy and well formed. And then what I do is I go through and I bring all the frames that have brood on them, I bring them down into the first brood box, right? Then on either side you have pollen. Some frames have pollen on them where the brood is, but I like to have a couple of pollen frames if I've got them on either side. Then next to that we have the honey. So yes, we bring everything down, and some people have 8 frames of brood, some people have 5. But the key is having a healthy queen. Then the idea is that you do your treatments then, and then your whole brood area is basically ready for winter itself. Then with us, we have another box on top, but in between, we've talked about this before, having a hive mat with a small slot that's about 8 centimetres long by 2 centimetres deep, and we put that on top of the brood box with the slot slightly to the rear of the cluster in the middle. And what that does is that we put all the honey on there, then we put any empty frames, and I leave them on all over winter. And with that system, the box is single brood box, and I can vaporize confidently knowing I'm going to get that whole area sorted out. But the bees can still go up and down, they manage the frames and keep it clean, and then I don't have to store them anywhere.
Do you have a blog post about that on our blog?
I think so.
Okay, yeah.
We just do it a little differently. A lot of people just winter them down into one box. I don't shake my bees. Gary likes to shake his bees. I don't like shaking my bees. So
you've got to shake them to check for AFB.
Oh, that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, yeah, we bring all our brood together, because the more space you've got, the more the bees have to manage. And if they start to get weak or anything, they can start losing their way. So keeping them condensed, they seem to work really well. And even if you're where you are, you're looking at the temperatures changing overnight anyway. So the bees have to be secure in their cluster. So yeah, so we run our hives mostly with 2 brood boxes, but over winter, that second box actually becomes a honey box as we bring all the honey into that box.
So thanks for your question, Stephanie. That's awesome. And Stephen's got back to us. He says, thanks for the reply. I found the fogger much faster, but I'm not convinced it worked as well as the hot iron. Yeah, well, that'd be an interesting test to try out. Do one and do the other one.
I would think that maybe if you've got a lot of boxes on, maybe do 2 treatments to really get it through the whole thing. Because like I said, the vapour will dissipate. So you can use more treatment if you want to, but also maybe shut the hives, at least the entrance, for 10 minutes and then go and do the other hives, and then just go back and open it again. It's not harmful for the bees as long as they're not suffocating in terms of the heat of the weather.
No. And Isaac Bennett, he said he found my queen today and she's not in great condition. The brood looks really healthy. But what? In addition, the brood looks really healthy.
Okay.
Well, do you mean the brood's not healthy? Because why would you replace her if its brood's healthy? But he's ordered a new queen and he's concerned the introduction will not be accepted by the hive.
Okay, when you've got a queen in there and the brood looks really healthy, if the brood is really healthy, I don't know why you'd consider. I don't know what you mean by she's not in great condition. Is she not laying at all? Or I think you really need to have a good look at what is going on. If the queen was unhealthy, the bees would have started raising new queen cells. That's a natural response for bees to do that when they are looking at replacing her. So I'm always cautious about replacing queens. In fact, I don't do it. I breed new ones from surviving genetics.
Well, if she's not, the brood isn't good. You might have mistyped there, but what I would do is they'll give you the queen in a queen cage. So put the queen cage in and leave it for a few days, but take the queen out about an hour to 2 hours before you do this, and put the queen.
You mean before you add the new queen?
Remove the old queen, get the queen cage, put it into the hive, and usually they have candy in the top, in the bottom or the top, and And Isaac said he sent some pictures today. We'll have to have a look at those.
On Messenger.
And, you put them in the queen cage, and after 3 days, go and make sure that she's been released. They should be okay.
She looked sore and broken. Oh, that's no good.
Oh, that's no good. She might have got damaged.
Maybe she got injured. How do you do your inspections? Because often queens are damaged through rolling. And rolling bees is really bad. So, maybe the methodology with the inspection caused injuries. I'm sorry, I haven't seen the picture. Is it on here?
We'll have a look at the picture. Is it a messenger? Oh, we'll keep going because it's a live show. Margaret will look at that and we'll get back to you. Yeah, if you want to be part of the next show and have a look at kiwi.bz/problem, and you can put your question in there.
Yeah, it's really good. Thanks, guys, for coming on. If there's any more... what's that? Thanks. Had wondered about sealing the hive when fogging. We'll try and do a comparison on treatments this year and let you know what I find. Yeah, and also remember the fact that if you're treating and you've got lots of boxes, then the treatment becomes quite weak, so it'll go all the way up and it won't be concentrated in the brood, so you might need to do 2 or close it up completely. So that'll be interesting to hear how that goes for you, Stephen.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the part of the show where we thank our supporters.
Any more questions, guys?
I don't think so, but if there's any more we can come back later after this video.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for listening to our show, and thanks to all our supporters who support us through the Patreon service. This week we would like to thank
Trish Stretton,
Rachel Stone,
Greg Parr,
Lisa Morrissey. Yay! Thanks, guys. You are awesome.
Yeah, thanks, guys. That's awesome.
And thanks for being here today.
If you love what we do and find it useful, you can support us too. Visit kiwi.bz/banana. That'd be great. Because that's how we pay the bills, isn't it?
How we have to pay the bills, we have to eat. And especially in lockdown, you just never know when the next meal's coming. So we got a response from Isaac. He's saying he's confident that he's checks them with great care. So I don't know if the hive is sick, or there's a reason why she is not well. So it could be sickness, it could be something happening in the hive that we aren't aware of. So I don't know, I'm just not sure. Maybe, I don't know, how old is she? What sort of treatments are you using? It's a big question. I always like to go, when I have a problem that is going on in the hive, I always like to go back.
Yes, Rachel's saying, look out, Snowy, if they're hungry, run. Yeah.
That's right. That's it.
Well, we actually shot 2 possums the other day, but we're not that hungry.
Yeah, and Snow killed a couple of rats because we've been doing a lot of clearing around the property. And, we're finding little nests that are hiding around, so it's awful, but,
Yeah.
We sorted them out, and Snow helped out.
And the show notes for this podcast are going to be kiwi.bz/159. And thanks, everyone, for coming this week. It's been awesome.
Yeah, and I just want to say that at the moment, the hives that I'm going through I've got about 4 of them that I don't think they're going to survive. And sometimes when you get hives that are not doing well and they don't really build up enough in the prime of the season, which is through, end of spring, summer, and they're not really building up, sometimes you have to say, well, do I want to keep, putting good after bad? So you could say, that you cut your losses, but I think that's come over 10 or 11 years of our beekeeping now where, how much energy do you want to put into a hive that's not really performing? So it's a very delicate balance, and I don't like killing queens or anything like that, but it's all about timing as well. So I
remember when we first started, we had a hive that they were really lazy, and we kept them going for years and years, and they never did anything, did they?
She laid, and there was population, but I don't know, it's just sometimes that happens. So, it's the way it is.
Isaac, you should be okay. He's just saying he's concerned about the queen being accepted. Just don't do any treatments at the same time, like Epilifar or any kind of smelly treatments. Just leave them to their own smells.
Yeah, I think the thing is you've got to get that instinct that the queen is gone. So 24 hours is okay too. If she's dead now, you said she's dead now, so she should. If you add the new queen, that should be fine. And I think it's about you put it in the cage into the hive, and then you leave it for 3 days, and then go and check. Maybe 5 days, maybe, and then you'll have to start seeing eggs.
I say 3 days.
3 days for them to get through the
candy,
and
just check that after 3 days, check that the candy's gone, because sometimes it's especially this time of year, it might be cold and hard, and they won't eat it.
So make sure that you give them. The queen is gone now, so that's sorted that side out, and then you can add the new queen now. And then wait 3 days, check that she's gotten out of it, and then from there, another week maybe, and check for eggs or larvae.
Absolutely. So we'll leave the show there, but we'll stay around. So if you've got any more questions, we'll answer them after this.